we bring you Killer Wives, episode 51. Shotgun Wedding. These are the case facts against Micah Kukakova, who stalked and shot her man out of jealousy. Isn't trust a bitch? Costa del Sol, famous beach destination for Hollywood celebrities and the wealthy alike, but also made famous for the murder of multimillionaire Andrew Bush.
Murder is never based on geological location, any more than it's rooted in income or despair. People are killed every day in some of the ugliest places as well as the beautiful. Costa del Sol, or the Sol Coast, represents the most beautiful place on earth to die, or in this case, be murdered. This luscious playground of the rich and famous has become home to celebrities such as Antonio Banderas and Eva Longoria. Yachts there are plenty at Puerto Buenos Marina. For those who do not wish to own, there are leasing agreements of $108,000 per day, or $650,000 per week. It would be here that the green-eyed monster of jealousy would drive Micah to kill her wealthy jeweler boyfriend.
No one could have imagined that someone who seemingly had everything going for them would shoot and kill a millionaire in broad daylight and expect to get away with it. Although forensic psychology could never answer the question of when Micah planned the murder, they could pretty much tell you why she did it. Forensic psychology explains to us that there are typically 4 reasons that lovers are motivated to kill those closest to them. Financial gain being 1, child custody issues, revenge, self-defense, and good old-fashioned jealousy. Now, surely this particular murder case involving Micah Kukakova could be successfully bagged, tagged, and filed under the green-eyed monster of jealousy. You see, Micah was angry that another woman, whom she believed was much younger and prettier than she, was vying for the attention of the man she wished to marry. But this man had no intention of marrying her. Sure, he went out with her for a while, but that was it. Micah at the time of the killing had been estranged from her ex-lover, Mr. Bush, due to her controlling attitude long before she planned to execute him on the morning of April 5th, 2014. If he only knew that was coming. Micah didn't take that breakup well at all, because she saw a future between herself and Mr. Bush's wealth, and she didn't want anything or anybody coming between them. Kukakova struggled mightily with rejection from Mr. Bush and began bombarding him with text messages, pictures, and videos in order to win back his affection. And unfortunately, she failed miserably at that, and Bush moved on to a new love that drove the day of his execution in Micah's mind. On the morning of Saturday, April 5th, Bush and the newest love of his life, Russian student Maria Kurtova, were just returning from a trip to his vacation home, seen here. What Mr. Bush didn't plan on was that his previous love interest had broken into his home and was armed and awaiting him in the upstairs bedroom. Now, how she managed to get through Bush's exclusive security system, no one knows. Apparently, Micah, the Slovakian swimmer model, had been hiding out for the last 2 days prior, watching his TV, eating his food, and waiting to kill him. Now, all the while hoping he was coming home alone. Maybe she thought they could make up. Maybe she thought she could kill him without anybody knowing it. The bikini model had become obsessed with Mr. Bush to the level of stalking him after they ended their 2.5-year-long relationship some 6 months earlier. Now, isn't it odd in life how it takes two to agree on a relationship to start, but only one to say it's finished? I guess Micah never came to understand that agreement. You see, in Micah's mind, this relationship was one continuous soap opera that hadn't played out itself yet. The rather attractive couple met and ultimately dated after millionaire jeweler Bush, known as the King of Bling, gave her a job in one of his gold trader shops in his hometown of Bristol. Bristol is a town that has a modern economy built on creative media, electronics, and aerospace industries. The town is located approximately 117 miles west of London, and even though he was not in his hometown when he was murdered, they never saw this coming either. Bush was well known in Bristol for his jewelry business and for being previously married to former BBC radio presenter Samantha Mason, who was the mother of his daughter Ellie. Mr. Bush was also known for having a keen interest in works of beauty, such as expensive watches, hence the moniker King of Bling.
You're watching M&N, the Men's Channel.
At the time of his death, Bush was living with his then 19-year-old daughter Ellie in a 5-bedroom home that cost $500,000 or mansion in Chepstow, Wales. Additionally, Bush had a fleet of expensive cars including a red convertible Ferrari, a gray Lamborghini, and a top-of-the-range Hummer, which he kept at his Spanish villa where Micah was hiding out to kill him. Bush's desire for finer things in life would not lead to his untimely demise, but the finer women he chased around in life would. Micah Kukakova was 22 when she met the millionaire in 2012, but their relationship quickly turned turbulent, with jealous Kukakova checking his phones constantly and throwing tantrums. Her attitude eventually drove Bush away in the long run, but his other family members away at the beginning of the relationship. They couldn't take it from the start, and they told him as much. Why? Mr. Bush's own sister reasoned Micah Kukakova to be nothing more than a gold digger who only wanted her brother's money. And in a lot of these relationships, we bring in the Killer Wife series, it's money that leads to death. Now, in his sister's own words, she would say all Michael was interested in was his money. Miss Bush recalled that Michael would act like a spoiled little child. It was embarrassing, she said. She also noted that Micah did not like Bush's family any more than they liked her. So this was a mutual hatred. Mr. Bush's sister revealed that Micah's jealousy of his relationship with his family even led her to remove all the photographs of them from his house. That wasn't her house, it was his. She recalled asking her brother one time, "Where have all the pictures gone?" To which her brother replied, Micah had them taken down. He said, "She's not stable." Now this should be the first clue when your life is in danger. Mr. Bush had lived with his daughter and Miss Kukakova for a short time, but his girlfriend pushed him apart as well, and Ellie ended up moving out of the house of her natural-born father. Now in September 2013, approximately 7 months prior to the murder, Mr. Bush's family was given a chilling glimpse into just how far Micah Kukakova was prepared to go to keep her man. She had no intentions of letting this guy go. If she had to do it through death, she would. Now it was during that time frame that Mr. Bush arrived at his large farmhouse in Chepstow, Gwent. Now he found his girlfriend Micah handcuffed with a pillow over her head. It appeared to him that someone had broken in and tied up his love interest. Wow. They'd broken in, they tied her up, they didn't do anything to her. Micah told him 3 or 4 armed men had overpowered her and robbed the house. Police were called, yet there was no appeal for witnesses, no description of the gang, and no Crime Watch reconstruction. Now in the long run, police came to suspect that Micah made up the entire incident to get attention and to draw Mr. Bush deeper into a committal relationship. In other words, she was forcing him to marry her through a victimization ploy, a protector. Now over the duration of the relationship, Mr. Bush family painted a disturbing picture of Miss Kukakova as an irrational woman whose jealous rages destroyed her relationship with Mr. Bush. Now, whether it's on Killer Wives, no matter whether it's on any show we do on this channel or on your block, you recognize these same symptoms. Ellie, who worked for her father in his small empire of shops around Bristol, said Miss Kukakova was extremely insecure and could not control her anger. She claimed Miss Kukakova was obsessed with her father and would follow him to make sure he was not cheating on her. How many times have you guys seen this in a bad relationship? The jealousy and paranoia became so pervasive that the swimwear model even began to feel threatened by Mr. Bush's relationship with his own daughter. This is insane. She's a grown woman, she's living her own life, and you're jealous of that. Ellie always worried about him being with other women like Micah. She added that Miss Kukakova would throw tantrums on the shop floor, check computers that Mr. Bush had used in order to find out he was dating anyone else but herself. She would also, she said, go through his cellular phone. Mr. Bush's sister, Rachel, who also worked in the shops, said it got to the stage where Andy had to ask Micah to find a new job because her anger became so uncontrollable. She would come into the shop and create big scenes shouting in front of the staff. Now, you can't do that in a workplace anymore than you can do it when you're at the house. But Ellie, his daughter, said her father saw the model as a project and was determined to bring out the best in her, even while she brought out the worst in him. Miss Kukakova's erratic behavior began to seriously trouble Ellie when they took a vacation to the country of Dubai in September of 2012 to celebrate Ellie's 18th birthday. Ellie said Micah was really distant on the trip and that Rachel and she both felt it was because it wasn't about her, she said. It was not about her as she wanted it to be. Ellie's mother, radio presenter Samantha Mason, who split from Mr. Bush 6 years earlier, recalled that her dad and I brought matching trainers and Micah hated it. She wanted to be back in the limelight again. She always had to be first. Rachel also revealed that during the Dubai trip, Miss Kukakova admitted to her that she felt threatened by Ellie's strong bond with her father. Does not make sense. At that point, Micah walked off in the middle of the night for about 5 hours, and when she got back, she told her someone had tried to kidnap her, but this was obviously a lie. It was a pathetic lie, she said. Now, in a striking illustration of Miss Kukakova's violent temper, she became abusive to Mr. Bush when he refused to buy items in Dubai shopping mall for her that were in excess. His daughter said she went into a blind rage, screaming, and threw a handbag at him. She did it purposely to hurt him and then stormed off like a child. We didn't see her for a few hours. Now I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, is this the adult behavior that she should have while living with a millionaire? And so many women today want to live with millionaires. Now, towards the end of the holiday, Miss Kukakova also destroyed Mr. Bush's laptop computer in a temper. Now, Rachel said she stomped all over it, then she put it underneath running water and put it back into its case. She said when we got back to England, her father realized what had happened, but he tried to ignore it. He thought he could change her somehow. It was then that her daughter realized that Micah could not control her anger. She was like a little child. And these were no isolated examples of Miss Kukakova's insatiable demand for attention. This was according to Rachel. It was regular behavior every time we were together. So she tried to pull a family apart from the very beginning. His daughter said, I was in the hospital once, and she pretended that the taxi crashed on the way so that everyone was asking if she was okay when she got there. But there was no taxi crash. She has to be the main attraction, she said. We'll be back in just a moment.
You're watching M&N, the Men's Channel.
These and other erratic, narcissistic type of behaviors led to the murder of the jeweler shortly after his new girlfriend walked into the villa that one Saturday morning. It is believed that this is the first time that Micah came face to face with her younger, more positive and attractive competition. Maria recounts the events leading up to the murder and how she was startled to find Kukakova in the villa on the morning of Bush's death. He didn't know she was inside, nor did she. For if they did, they might not have entered the residence without calling police first. Now, Maria says as she entered the residence behind Mr. Bush, they noticed bras and panties hanging seductively on clothes racks at the entrance of the house. It was then that she said, my heart started thumping. She said, I had a feeling of someone was in the house. I followed Andy in, and there was an open suitcase on the floor with a pair of stiletto heels inside. I turned and went upstairs, she said. When I got to the top of the landing, I could see her. She looked calm and stayed very still like a rock after we made eye contact. I guess she was as shocked to see me as I was to see her. She says the image haunts me still to this day, and probably to the time I die. She stood there staring at me. She had her hair down and was wearing pajamas, tiny shorts, and a little flimsy vest top. I could just see her silhouette. It was then that Mr. Bush told his new partner to go to the car and phone the police after his swimmer Model X refused to leave the house. So he sort of anticipated some drama is about to happen. She said, I screamed and I ran out of the house to hide in a Hummer that we had just arrived in. Now Maria locked and sat in the $72,000 Hummer outside of the property and was calm with Mr. Bush, who came out shortly behind her. And he assured her that everything would be all right and that he was going in to get her out of the house. He described her as a crazy person just before turning and going back into the home alone. As he left, this would be the last time that she would see him alive. Now, unfortunately, this tragic choice of confrontation over waiting for the police to arrive would end tragically for this one particular millionaire. As Mr. Bush re-entered the villa, an argument broke out between Mr. Bush and his ex-lover. Now, outside, you couldn't hear the argument, but what Mr. Bush's new girlfriend heard, it sounded like 3 gunshots right behind one another. After the shots rang out, Micah excitedly exited the house. She had the keys to the Hummer in her hands and said, get out of the car. Now, she was so calm and direct that it sent chills down my spine, she says. She says, I was furious. I didn't think Andy would give her the keys. She did not have any problem with me. She was non-aggressive at that point. And she wanted to take the car. And she said, I did not want her to let her do it. But she told me that Andrew had said it was okay. She said she was going to the airport and that she would leave the car there. She took all my bags out of the car. Now, Micah told her before leaving, Andy wants to speak to you, and he is in the toilet. So she was trying to pretend that he was still alive and that he was in the bathroom awaiting his new love. She said, so I got out of the car and I started to walk to the door. Then the car sped off and I realized the front door was closed. I shouted for Andy to let me in, but there was no answer, and my phone at that time was out of power. Then I met some policemen on the street and went into the house with them. They looked around and called the city police for a larger investigation. Now, they were trying to get into the house for a long time, she says. A police officer who attended the scene said he found Mr. Bush's body on the floor near the front door. He said there was blood around him, a lot of blood. A revolver was in his left hand. Then they told me in Spanish that he had been shot. Now, it was made to look that he had just committed suicide, but this man cannot commit suicide because he's been shot 3 times, 2 times in the head. Now, forensic medics said that when he arrived at the scene, he had heard about a possible suicide, but he added, I had only to take a look at the scene to know that this was not a suicide. We'll be back in just a moment.
You're watching M&N, the Men's Channel.
After Micah took Mr. Bush's Hummer 4x4 and fled the mansion, she drove many miles away before stopping to call an old boyfriend to help her navigate back to her hometown some 2,000 miles away. So she was going to leave the vehicle, but she was going to need help to get home. Every time one of these killer wives hurts their actual husband, they always go to a boyfriend for help. Now, Micah then abandoned the car, which was found close to a nearby hospital 2 days later, and made her way to Madrid, where she lived in. Now, that was with the help of the boyfriend, like I said. Now, the pair took a bus to France and then Slovakia, where she handed herself over to police, the local police at that time. Now, Kukako was detained on suspicion of consumed international homicide before being extradited back to the country of Spain, where she fled. But she did not turn herself in until 4 days had passed. Her defense team in the court would ultimately say that she shot him during a fight, but Kukakov insisted she did not realize he was dead when she left. Now, this was a bald-faced lie due to the number of shots to his body, like I said before, as well as the location of those wounds. Kukakova would go on to testify at her trial that she was watching television in the villa on that one Saturday morning. At that time, she said she heard Mr. Bush out in the garden. She says, "I couldn't believe that I was hearing." She says, "I ran upstairs to get dressed." She was trying to pretend that she was getting out of the mansion. During her second day of her murder trial at the Ciudad de la Justica in Malaga, Michael Kukakova, 26 years old at the time, told the jury that British businessman Andrew Bush had hit her and shot at her on the day of his death in April 2014. So this guy did a lot of things, but murder was not one of them. Now, the jury took less than a day to find the 26-year-old Slovakian guilty of his murder after a 4-day trial based solely on the facts of the case and not on her fiction. Now, on returning to the house, the accused person, Ms. Kukakova, was waiting for Mr. Bush and unexpectedly made use of a firearm, which she shot Mr. Bush up to 3 times with, moved by the desire to end his life. That's what the defense attorney was trying to dispute, but the prosecutor knew differently. And because of the unpredictable nature of the attack and characteristics, Mr. Bush did not have the possibility to react and defend himself, and his death occurred. This was the ultimate summation of the trial. Now, the first shot was to his left arm, and the other 2 shots to his head. So one to the left arm, the other 2 to the head. So how could she ever think that he was alive when she left? Now, the first shot was made at a distance of more than 5 feet, so that's not attacking her. The second shot was made from a long distance, and the third and last shot was also struck to the head, was made much closer. Now, how could he be taking out a gun and wrestle for it if the first shot was 5 feet away? Then Mr. Bush's sister had this to say about the Slovakian beauty after her trial. She said, "Micah definitely wasn't normal. How would you know someone was capable of something like this? It still does not feel real to me," she said. And the thing that happens in these cases, the person that murders another person goes to jail. One person goes to the grave. Everybody loses the money and the house. Now, Richard L.A. also dismissed claims of Ms. Kukakova that she is pregnant and had come to the villa to confront Mr. Bush about child support agreements, which she said she had. Now, they believed that this was just another one of her lies to escape punishment and prison. Now, Mr. Bush was buried in a nearby cemetery where he remained nearly 5 years later due to the laws preventing the removal of evidence back to his home country of the UK. Now, Mr. Bush's family planned to fly his body home for a proper British burial. Rachel, Andy's sister, said, "One of Andy's things was, I told you I was unbelievable. He lived up to that every single minute of every single day." Michael Kukakova was sentenced to 15 years in jail for the death of the jeweler, but was paroled 8 years after she gunned him down after persuading Spanish authorities that she did not pose a danger to anyone. Now, she posed the most danger to him. But this woman, I think, if you gave her a chance, she would kill another man just for money. Kukakova has been quick to celebrate her newfound freedom by posting Instagram pictures of her topping up her tan on a Spanish beach in a skimpy black and gold bikini and enjoying meals out with her friends. So she went back immediately to post that on social media. Then one image, which will infuriate the family of Mr. Bush, showed her posing provocatively in a tight white dress while leaning against a palm tree, while another featured her cooling off under an outside shower. So she's back to her old game. Kukakova also reportedly joined her Slovakian parents Danka and Lombardi on a Spanish holiday island of Majorca. Now there she posted a picture 2 weeks ago of 3 of them enjoying a meal in a restaurant and a shopping mall. For Killer Wives, this is Charles Rivers. Thank you for watching.
Until next time.